I believe I just found the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 Killer. These two little cameras do a lot of the same features for a similar price range. So if you're looking to get a compact camera for vlogging or streaming, watch this before you buy. The DJI Osmo Pocket 3 is a popular camera amongst vloggers, and rightfully so. I completely replaced my vlogging lens for it. I've been using it for behind the scenes and documenting daily life with the missus since ending our long distance relationship. After a while of using it, I realized that a lens was not the only thing I wanted to replace. I wanted to replace my Sony FX30 cameras. I wanted something else to use for my church seminars and evangelistic meetings, and for me, that's been the OBSBOT Tail Air, which could also easily serve as the same purpose of my Osmo Pocket 3. These two cameras offer similar things at similar price points, but if you only had the cash to buy one of these, which should it be? Trust me, it's not as clear as you think it would be. If sensor size matters to you, the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 has a bigger 1-inch sensor compared to the Tail Air, with a 1/1/8 sensor. Here's how the images compare of me in the studio in 4K and in 1080. In terms of frame rates, if you're interested in filming in slow motion or slowing down your footage in post, the Pocket 3 has no cropping in any of its shooting modes while shooting up to 4K 60 or 4K 120. However, the Tail Air starts cropping in a little bit when it comes to shooting at 1080 at 48 frames per second and higher. There is no cropping at 4K 30 for the OBSBOT Tail Air. But in terms of the lenses that they use, they do have wide angles. The Pocket 3 has a 20mm lens, while the Tail Air has a 23mm lens. If you want to zoom in, you're going to have to do that digitally between the both of them. I'm not generally in favor of digital zoom unless you really need that shot, but even then, I would rather just zoom in post and have the options to be able to frame up later on. The Pocket 3 allows for 2x zoom, whereas the Tail Air allows for 4x zooming. But again, I would avoid digital zoom if I could, especially in low light. Autofocus though is excellent on both of these cameras, especially when it's a wider focal length. Wider field of view allows for much more things to be in focus. When it comes to the Pocket 3, unless you got your settings in correctly, you'll see this kind of hunting sensation, which I'm not so fond of. Focusing in and out with continuous autofocus. Depending on the kind of shot that you're looking for, you may want to set your Osmo Pocket 3 for single autofocus. The Tail Air only has one focus mode, and that's continuous autofocus. When it comes to stability with these two, the Pocket 3 has a 3-axis gimbal, while the Tail Air only has a 2-axis gimbal. Both will be smoother than any traditional camera without any axis stabilization whatsoever. But the Pocket will be smoother for vlogging and recording videos handheld. Where the Tail Air shines though is in the built-in AI that allows for gesture controls for things like following, recording, and zooming in. The Pocket 3 may not have AI built in, but it does have smart tracking features that'll follow you even when you framed in particular parts of your shot. So if I want to stay on like this third of the shot, then the Osmo Pocket will be able to maintain me on this side, no matter how I position the camera. If you'd like a little bit more control out of your OBSBOT Tail Air, without having to rely on your phone, you can go ahead and use their remote that they sell separately. That works great, flawless, probably one of the best remotes that I've ever used for a camera. The Osmo Pocket 3 may not have a dedicated remote to stop and start, but the closest thing we got to that is the DJI Mic 2 that comes with a creator combo that allows you to stop and start right on the device itself. But if you don't want to spend extra at all, you can control both of these devices with your phone. The Pocket 3 has the DJI Mimo app, and the Tail Air has the OBSBOT Start app. DJI does a great job with their apps, and I find it simpler, whereas the OBSBOT app, I find myself clicking for things over and over again to remember what they do. When you pick up both of the cameras, the Tail Air is heavier at 344.5 grams, and it's just best to leave this guy on a tripod or even a light stand. The Pocket 3 though weighs 179 grams, which is like a feather. Looking at it closer, the Pocket 3 has a flip screen with a record button that functions as a power button too, and then we got the joystick. On the bottom, we have the USB-C port that allows for charging, especially if you want to charge while recording. The Tail Air doesn't come with any screen, and you can only see the footage when connecting to an app, whether it's a computer or the phone. It does, however, come with a built-in 3.5mm microphone jack, USB-C port, micro HDMI port, and power button. Both of these cameras have internal microphones that you can use when recording videos. But the Pocket 3 also has a speaker for you to listen to during your playback of your videos, whereas the OBSBOT Tail Air does not. You have to play it back through the app. As portable as these cameras are, they are not rated for weather resistance, but I did take out the Pocket 3 one time during some light rain and it held up okay. I just don't advise that you do that, but that's just my experience. Now both of these can be used as a webcam and for streaming, but there's some things that you need to pay attention to. One commenter from my DJI Osmo Pocket 3 review said that his unit was jumping in and out when it came to the webcam mode and didn't have a consistent connection. I don't use my Pocket 3 for this, but when I tried it out, I haven't had that experience. But that's just something to keep in mind in case you need to exchange it for a new one, if anything. Fortunately, for both of these units, you don't need a capture card to be able to use them as webcams. You just plug and play. When it comes to having a multi-cam setup though, especially for streaming, the Tail Air is the more favorable as it connects to your computer wirelessly with Wi-Fi or even HDMI if you use wireless transmission, but you can still use a USB-C cable or Ethernet cord. If you do want to use a multi-cam setup for your DJI Osmo Pocket, then you'd have to use a long USB-C port since there is no HDMI port of any kind, nor any desktop support for you to control your camera while streaming. Now, when you have these cameras plugged in, they will be charging, but how long will these cameras last while they're on battery alone? The Pocket 3 has been rated to last for 2 hours, and the Tail Air has been rated to last for 2.5 hours. I was able to achieve similar results beyond 2 hours for both of these cameras. I don't have any experience recording longer than this, but during my testing, neither of them overheated. Since these are cameras, both of them have the ability to take photos, but the Pocket 3 wins in this category because it also takes RAW files in the DNG format, whereas the Tail Air does not. You can only shoot JPEG. The experience with shooting photos on the Tail Air is like shooting photos with an iPhone while recording video. Both the buttons for recording and taking a photo are just side by side to use whenever you want. Do note that there is only single shot photography out of both of these cameras and there's no burst shooting modes. If you do need burst shooting, these cameras are not it. But what will these units end up costing you? The Tail Air goes for $499 while the DJI goes for $512. You can easily spend more on both of these cameras though with their respective accessories, depending on your use case. Yeah, you could easily spend up to $100 more or so if you want to get things like a dedicated remote and other support cables for the Tail Air. But the same thing could also be said for the Pocket 3, spending another $150 for their creator combo, giving you a wireless microphone, a battery grip, tripod feet, and wide angle lens. I think if you're purely focusing on content creation and just want a camera that does it all, then the Pocket 3 is an excellent choice. But if your focus is more on streaming, connecting to OBS, and not worrying about going outside, then you may just want to stick with the Tail Air. In the end, the Osmo Tail Air can do plenty of what the Pocket 3 can do, giving you a good vlogging and streaming experience. But for most people that don't need to stream or need a multi-cam setup, the Pocket 3 is a better choice. If you want more details on either of these cameras, I got reviews on them right here.